welcome to the first round of the European Rallycross Championship 2012. Now we're here at Lydden Hill Race Circuit in Kent, and round one is set to be an all-action-packed first round. The cars this weekend are divided into three categories, starting with the touring cars and making their way to the impressive four-wheel drive monsters that are the supercars. Rallycross is a unique mixture of racing and rallying. Cars take to the track and to the loose in what is always close and entertaining racing. The Rallycross day starts with heats. Each driver takes part in 3 heats and attempts to set the fastest time possible. Drivers' fastest 2 times of the day are added together and pitted against all the other drivers in their class. This determines their grid position for the finals. The beauty of Rallycross is that even drivers that are at the bottom end of the times still get entered into their own final, and those that cross the finish line first move on to the next final at the back of the grid.
So, time to have a look at some of the highlights of the heats. One man who impressed this weekend with his speed is American Tanner Faust. He's made the journey across the pond in a bid to clinch the honours in the opening round. Dave Jenny was the first casualty of the weekend, though. The Frenchman had a coming together with Guttorm Lindefeld and Patrick Van Mechelen, spat into the barrier and then going round at Chesson's Drift, sustaining so much damage that he was left unable to compete for the remainder of the day. Another man hoping for victory this weekend is local man and crowd favourite Liam Duran in his first outing in his new Citroën DS3. It didn't go to plan though. Made contact with another driver into the barrier at Chesson's Drift, and although the car was more or less okay and he made it out for the next heat, Liam then hit problems getting the car off the line, this leaving him only with a place in the B final for all his efforts. Mitsubishi Evo driver Steve Hill had dramas in his heats, and after this off at Chesson's Drift he was unable to restart, therefore well down the order. In the Super 1600s it was Dave Van Beers who made a great getaway, but behind him there was chaos after 3 cars came together from the start, and Andy Martin's VW Polo with some damage after contact with Jaroslav Vanček, leaving them both with a disappointing time and rather second-hand looking cars. Another driver who saw disappointment in the heats was British driver Andy Knowles in his Citroën C2, forced to pull off, and that was the end of his challenge for the day. Drama for Davy van der Branden. They're fighting for his car's survival after an accident, and a poor time saw him entered only into the C final. Onto the touring cars. The rear-wheel drive cars saw an excellent battle between Anton Markman and Lars Rosendahl. Very close, no biting action. And as the day progressed, Markman went into battle with the Mazda RX-8 in the hands of Tom Daniel Tanovic. This time, however, he ran wide coming out of Chesson's Drift, made contact with the Mazda, and then was sent spinning into the barrier with some significant damage on the back of his Fiesta. He wasn't the only one either. Not long later we saw Koen Pauwels in the barrier as he ran out of road, met the tyres whilst taking his Joker lap, and this left the Belgian with his work cut out as he'd have to fight from the back of the B final. Whilst Rosendahl was in another great battle, this time things didn't quite go to plan as he was forced into the barrier at Chesson's Drift and out of the competition due to his damage. So after some surprises in the heats, some of the drivers certainly have their work cut out, but they all get a chance at the finals and can progress back up to the A final if they're quick enough. Let's see what happens. So with Mertens, Royras and also Pedro Bonat in his new Volvo on the front row, none of them got away very well at the start of the B final for the touring cars, but one man who did got an absolute rocket start was Koen Pauwels. He'd had dramas earlier on in the weekend, seemed to be making amends for it. Mertens recovering quite quickly in his VW Polo, but for Ivo van der Brand in his unique Mitsubishi, he had problems up at the hairpin. Meanwhile, a spin also for Chris Molens in his BMW 1 Series. He did recover, but there was no stopping Koen Pauwels. He charged from the back of the B final to get onto the back of the A final. Here's your results. It was Pauwels who won by 7 seconds from a recovering Bonnet, who joins him on the back of the A final. Jarvenpaar, Royres, Mertens and Olsen. Down in the pits we've got Lisa with our winner.
We had a very problematic weekend. We started with a crash so I landed up on the last row of the B final. But the car is good and my team is perfect. We are here.
And so are the spectators, enduring some horrific bank holiday weather, but some fantastic racing. It's Derek Tohill, the 2010 champion, on pole. Alongside him is the 2006 champion, Roman Castorel from the Czech Republic in his Opel Astra. But the best of the starts comes from the man who was the last qualifier in the championship for this final, was Anton Markman. Contact with Nordgaard and Tohill from the front row. Tom Daniel Tanovic in his Mazda RX-8 comes through to get the best of the chaos behind him. Castorel has taken his Joker lap, as indeed as Kuhn Pauls, and just behind that Pedro Bonet. We also saw the BMW just at the back of Kim Steinschult coming through as well. These conditions just so demanding throughout the day. At least the drivers have had this throughout the day, so they haven't had to adapt to it suddenly in the final. And of course, circuit knowledge, a useful thing. Tohill won this event back in 2010, so knows exactly how to drive the Lydden circuit, taking the tactic of running his Joker lap. Remember, the Joker lap must be taken by all of the drivers at some point during the race, so they can take it on the first lap, last lap, or anywhere in between, but it must be done, and it adds around about 3 seconds a lap. And the idea is that the drivers will come back on pretty much neck and neck. Tohill trying to keep the car tight to the inside. It's so much looser on the exit, as Nordgaard demonstrates there with a massive slide coming through the right-hander there. This man, Anton Markman, the Swede, just 19 years old, had a part season in the championship during 2011 and showed some massive promise there. Comes back with a full-on attack at the European Championship for the touring car division. Remember, as we said, these are the rear-wheel drive cars, which require a very different technique to the front-wheel drive Super 1600s and, of course, the four-wheel drive supercars. Quite often seen drivers progress from the various categories up into the supercars, and a lot of talent here. As we've seen, a difference in chassis as well. That could be a factor in these conditions. But Tohill doing his best to try and close down on Markman as Nordgaard goes off for his Joker lap. Quite often here at Lydden, we've seen the drivers come back on with a relatively straight run off the Joker, and that can really be a useful thing. But a little kink there just around that last bit of the barrier means that you don't get a massive advantage. Just ahead there was Pedro Bonet. His first weekend in the Volvo C30. He's had very limited testing in France in that car. And then off for Bonet, just as we talk about him. The conditions have caught him out there. Let's see if we get an idea what happens. He goes into the braking area for the Devil's Elbow, just loses the back end, perhaps on a downshift. Well, it's understandable these drivers are challenging themselves with these conditions. It's been such a dramatic time for all of them, keeping it neat and tidy through the right-hander at Paddock Bend. Comes Anton Markman to take victory in the opening round of the 2012 European Rallycross Championship for the touring car division. Mark himself out as a man to watch. So Markman wins by 2.14 seconds from Castorel, with Tohill in third, Tanovic a brilliant fourth, and Kuhn Pauls fifth ahead of Nordgaard.
It's a fantastic feeling. We have a rough weekend with a not so good start, and the weekend with this, it's fantastic.
So it is, of course, Markman that leads with 20 points ahead of Castorel and Tohill, Tanovic, Pauls and David Nordgaard in 6th position. Points all the way down to 16th, and a lot to play for the balance of the season. So the guests in the Monster Energy Station watching on interestedly as we saw the C final with the 207 starting on the front row of Jan Skala. It was a good start from behind of Vaclav Veverka in the slightly older 206 as they bounced through that huge puddle on the apex of Chestnut Drift. Meanwhile, immediately Dave van Beers in the Clio seemed to be dropping backwards, but it was a huge battle starting to develop at the front between Skala and Veverka. Then contact between van Beers and Wimmer. So the Skoda driver turned round as the Joker lap was taken by Skala. You could see just to the right of the shot, Veverka coming through on a mission, load of oversteer. As Skala comes off of his Joker lap, the conditions really challenged them, and I think feeling the pressure it was Jan Skala, because as he turned into the Devil's Elbow, got a load of understeer coming out. Veverka got better drive, and immediately was around the outside as they got onto the brakes into North Bend, meaning that it was the older Peugeot that was just holding the initiative, but behind Scala got good drive down the hill, and it was a race to the line with Wewerke holding off Scala, with both of them progressing to the B final. So Wewerke heads Scala, Van den Branden, Beers, and Mandy August, the lady racer, just ahead of Pavel Wimmer after his spin. So we're ready for the B final. All important for these drivers to try and get on the back of the A final. It's Johansson in the little DS3, gets a great start from Paul Kalny around the outside. Three drivers take their Joker lap immediately at the front of those. It's the Russian Chigabugdanov who gets so sideways onto the grass, loses the back end, and the Austrian driver Christian Petrakovic just about gets through in his Polo. Meanwhile, Johansson under a little bit of pressure from Kalny, who won here in this category back in 2010. Erik Faren, the protege of Kenneth Hansen, has been run by his team, and the man that won the C final, Wewerke, just coming up the inside, and Faren and Wewerke go for the same piece of road, and Wewerke ends up bouncing into the tyres on the exit of North Bend. It looks like he might be able to recover. Let's have another look. What you can see, the little C2 just moves across to have a look round the outside. Doesn't realise that Wewerke is quite as close and forces him onto the grass, and understandably no way he can get the car stopped in these treacherous conditions here at Lydden Hill. Johansson, meanwhile, has just driven a very neat and tidy race. We've already seen Anton Markland, his countryman, do a fantastic job in the touring car category. Remember, these are all front-wheel drive, based loosely on the Super 1600 rally car regulations that we saw as the Junior World Rally Championship for many years, of course, producing such champion drivers as Sebastian Loeb and Danny Sordo, Chris Meek amongst others. And the DS3, of course, the weapon of choice for Loeb in the World Rally Championship. The current world champions, of course, a very different specification, much closer to the one that Liam Duran is campaigning in the supercars. Johansson, yellow flags flying there. Turns in a very neat and tidy drive through the final corner there. And David Johansson books his place in the A final. He is going to be joined by the Skoda on the A final as well. Let's have a look at those results. It is Johansson from Vanchik, Jan Scala, ahead of Petrakovic, who recovered, as did Chigabugdanov in his Clio. So after the break, we'll get a chance to see the A final for the Super 1600. See you in a moment. So the all-important A final for the Super 1600s. We've got teammates on the front row of the grid. We have the Finn Jussi Petteri-Leppähalme on the left. As we look at it in the middle, is Andreas Bakkerud, the current champion in his new Twingo, both run by the Set Promotions team. And this is Ulrich Linnemann, the Dane, with massive oversteer as he turns in on his Joker lap. Gets a bit of a clatter there from Bakkerud. Well, very friendly, but understandable. A lot at stake here. And Linnemann came down to Lydden Hill a couple of weeks before this event just to get a feel for it, and won the Super 1600 category in the British Championship event quite comfortably. Wasn't encountering conditions like this. It was quite mild and sunny throughout the weekend, but Leppähalme has already shown his promise in the Set Promotions Clio. Of course, that car, or a car almost identical to it, won the championship a couple of years ago in the hands of Timur Timurzayanov, who's moved up into the supercars with such style. Meanwhile, the DS3 of Johansson, who won the B final, is working himself forward to try and get on the back of the Screaming Pack ahead of him. The damage there on Bakkerud's car clear after that contact into the Joker lap on the opening turn. Skorupski coming through, another very quick driver. He won 3 races last year. He won in Sweden, also in Austria and Poland. Did Skorupski in his home event, his Polo. Meanwhile, Johansson, as we said, has been on the podium here before. Bakkerud, though, won the race outright back in 2011. One of 4 races that he won. Remember, the championship split in two as Bakkerud down the inside of Johansson. A very muscular move, certainly no lacking in aggression here, and he's determined to get himself as close to his teammate Leppähalme as possible. Skorupski just ahead of Johansson now, and behind them, bouncing and charging to 07 of Ulrich Linnemann. This is Linnemann. Now let's have another look. He's busy watching what's going on. Gets sideways, and that gives the opportunity to Bakkerud to find that gap. Clatter past, hopefully no damage apart from that headlamp cover missing on Bakkerud's car. Certainly this young man, the Finn, has looked completely at home in these terrible conditions. And it is Jussipaderi Leppäharmi who comes away with victory in the opening round of the Super 1600 category for 2012. He heads home champion Bakkerud, Skorupski, Linnemann in 4th, Vanchik and Makarov. Let's hear from our man Bakkerud in second place.
I was second into the Joker lap, and Linnemann, the Danish boy, he went wide and I went on the inside. And then I was first out from the Joker, and I catch David L.L. Johansson, and I took him inside in the hop wheel. So it was really nice. It was, and it's nice that my teammate win his first victory. So I'm really happy for him also.
You'll be celebrating this evening.
Of course, it will be a nice party in Dover.
So as they go off to party, this is what the points look like. Leppäharmi leads by 3 points ahead of Bakkerud. Skorupski, Linnemann, Vanchik and Vadim Makarov rounds out the top 6. So let's have a look and see what happened in the Supercar C final. As the cars get ready to go, immediately a problem for Will Turling, saw him stranded on the grid. And that was to bring out the red flag immediately and nullify the work done by the drivers who'd got some good starts. So with Turling's missing this time, it was the turn of Kevin Proctor, the 49-year-old Yorkshireman, having some dramas, getting his car moving. His Focus seeming to be going again okay, but nothing compared to the dramas of the Focus of Ollie O'Donovan, who had some contact after running wide, damaged the car severely enough to put him out for the remainder of the day. Sten Egil Jensen, who got caught up in that. This time, though, a third attempt saw Proctor with even more problems, pulling off and retiring, meaning it was a little bit more straightforward for Peter Hedström in his Fabia to bring the car across the line and book his position in the B final. And all eyes were going to be on Liam Duran in the black car on the right as we look at it. Jean-Luc Payet will start from pole position, and let's see what he did. Well, not a bad start. Steve Hill has had a dramatic time, as we know. Julian Godfrey, the current British champion, barging his way through. But as Duran took his Joker lap, immediately it was apparent that there was a lot of pace in the Auto Point Specialist Engineering Citroën DS3 in its first competitive outing. He bounced and charged his way through the murky conditions, slicing past Dutchman Jos Kuipers, and edged ahead, just gradually working his way a little bit further ahead, perhaps local knowledge being the key. And it was Liam Duran who booked his position on the back of the A final. So results were Duran headed Payet, who will join him on the A final, Godfrey, Anderson and Steve Hill. After a dramatic start to his day, it's a very happy Liam Duran.
So difficult driving today in these conditions, not being able to see where you're going and whatever else, and I'm just happy that I had my first clean race of the day, so hopefully I can come forward and have another clean race, because the A final will be carnage.
Well, we'll find out if it's carnage or not. On pole position, it's American Tanner Faust in the yellow and black Oldsmobile ZMRE. Great start from Mats Leeson. He gets the little Clio down the inside, and this is the view from Liam Duran's Citroën DS3. See the amount of understeer he's got there, just charging back, and Andy Scott in the wall from the beginning. Oh, we saw him put up a great performance at the end of the British Championship last year too. Pressure, Julian Godfrey finished runner-up there. Faust, meanwhile, the front of that car still nice and clean, which says he hasn't had anybody get ahead of him at this point. Well, the 38-year-old American looking very strong as Duran gets into the back of Lindefjell. Manages to get the DS3 back under control. Both of them continue on their way. Faust turns in ahead of Leeson, who's looking pretty untroubled. Lindefjell now under big pressure from Duran. Duran has only got one thing in his mind, and that's to try to, well, first of all, see where he's going. You can see the challenge these drivers have had, and the rain has just been absolutely remorseless. And brings the car into the Joker lap. Seen traditionally both him and in fact his dad Pat Duran, another Lydden expert, tend to take their Joker laps very early, but not this time, and it seems to have worked for him. He gets good drive off that extra bit of time after the exit of Chessenstrift. Meanwhile, Wolfredson getting extra sideways through the Devil's Elbow. He's going to be conscious of Duran charging up behind him. I don't think there's much point in having mirrors on these cars because you're not going to be able to see much behind you, are you? But Wilfridsson, who finished 9th in the European Championship last year, Duran didn't have the year that he would have hoped for. Some good solid points at the start. Of course, the previous season took a couple of wins, and it's got a very, very busy year this year. Wilfridsson just moving across on Duran, who manages to just back away from any kind of contact there. A little bit of damage at the front of the DS3. That might have been from that earlier contact we saw with Lindenfeld. Meanwhile, Faust just driving away, been absolutely impeccable at the head of the pack. Of course, having a clear view. We saw the view from Leon Duran's car. Just gives you an idea of just how challenging it is, let alone how difficult it is to control 600 horsepower four-wheel drive supercars. They get to 60 miles an hour in 1.9 seconds. That's not going to be a concern for either Wilfridsson or Duran at this point, although the charge down the hill gives you an indication. The acceleration, a bit of contact between the two of them. Wilfridsson not happy, bounces into the back of Duran's Citroen. Meanwhile, Anna Faust, well, I got a chance to catch up with him over the weekend. He said the key to success around this circuit in these conditions is going to be as smooth as possible. And you watch his immaculate driving style, of course, well renowned for being a twice Formula Drift champion in his home country. Also a stuntman in many Hollywood blockbusters, and also presents the American equivalent of Top Gear. Well, they came down and tried Rallycross. They enjoyed themselves, but they're nowhere near as quick as these guys in these cars. And Lydden, the 2009 Super 1600 champion, holding off Liam Duran there as Faust looks to have done just about enough. Is it going to be Tanner Faust? It is. He crosses the line to win the opening round of the 2012 European Rallycross Championship. Takes to the grass, but it's all over. Lydden is second by 5.57 seconds ahead of Liam Duran. Lindenfeld, De Kiersmacher and Stig Olaf Wilfridsson rounds out the top 6.
That was lucky. I'm glad to have stayed in front because I can't believe what he did coming from last to third. It's really good.
And at which point today did you think I can actually make that podium?
The second practice, when we really got some good times in on the second practice yesterday. The Fiesta's working great, and yeah, awesome.
It's really, really good to start season with the second place. I didn't see so much behind Tanner, and he was really, really quick this race, so I'm really satisfied with second place.
With the problems I've had today, to be on the podium right now, it's like, for me, it's like winning this event. I don't care who came first and second. For me, this is like a win because I've had so many problems. We've worked so hard with the new car and the new team. To be from the back of like the B final, qualifying like I think 10th or something, to being on the podium with a brand new car that's never raced before. These guys better look out this year.
Well, look out, they will, but at the moment it's all about Tanner Faust, second in the championship last year. He leads it at the moment out of Mats Lydden, Liam Duran, Gutturm, Lindenfeld, Michael De Kiersmacher and then Stig Olaf Wilfridsson.
After an action-packed first round of the FIA European Rallycross Championship, it's Tanner Faust that takes the victory. He now leads the championship going into France, where the heated battles and close action will continue.